Should you run Etsy ads in your shop? Well, the answer isn't a simple yes or a no. There are a lot of people who love Etsy ads, and there are also a lot of people who hate them, and even take pride in saying that they built their entire shop without ever having to touch ads. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I love that for them. But if you're in that place right now where you're curious about ads, maybe a little unsure, or you've tried them before and didn't really understand what was going on, then this video is for you. Hi, I'm Jai, an Etsy seller for over a year now, and I have made over $50,000 in revenue so far. Ads have been part of my marketing system ever since the beginning, and I get asked a lot about how to do them, so here we are. Now, before we get into anything technical, let's set some expectations, because this is where most people go into this with the wrong mindset. First of all, running ads is not a magic fix for your sales. Can you get more sales with ads? Sure, but the more important question is, will you actually be more profitable with ads? And that's the part that people don't really think about. A lot of beginners turn on their ads, see their traffic go up, and maybe even see a few sales come in, and they assume it's working. But when you actually look at the numbers, sometimes you're just paying for those sales. Or worse, losing money without realizing it. And that's what we're gonna learn to avoid today. Another thing is that people jump into ads without really being prepared for it. So my honest advice is that if you're not getting any organic sales in your shop yet, your shop is probably not ready for ads. What this means is that maybe there are things in your store that still needs to be improved. Maybe your designs aren't connecting with your audience yet. Maybe your niche is too broad or unclear. Maybe your listing photos don't really stand out. Or your SEO isn't helping you show up in the right searches. These are the fundamentals of selling on Etsy. And you need to master these things because your ads won't fix any of them. Etsy ads just amplify whatever is already there. So if your listings are strong, then ads can help you scale. But if your listings are weak, ads will just show more people your weak listings. And that's not necessarily going to help convert into more sales. I also recommend having at least a few reviews before you even think about turning on ads. Because when someone clicks on your listing from an ad, they're already a little skeptical. And if they see 0 reviews, that adds even more friction, even if your product is very good. But if you've been getting organic sales, have some reviews already, and you feel like your listings are in a good place, then ads can be your next step. Now, when you open up your Etsy ads page, the first thing that you'll see is your daily budget. This is basically how much you're willing to spend per day on ads. Etsy ads work on a pay-per-click basis. That means you only pay when someone actually clicks on your listing. If your listing gets shown 100 times but nobody clicks on it, you don't pay anything. But also, just because someone clicks doesn't mean they're gonna buy. So you could be spending money on clicks without getting any orders, especially in the beginning. And that's just part of the process. Also, Etsy won't always spend your full daily budget. If your budget is high but your listings aren't getting enough clicks, or they're not being shown enough, then Etsy simply won't use all of it and you don't have to pay for the full amount. So don't be surprised if you set a budget of, let's say, $50 a day and only get $20 or $30 in ad spend. Once your ads are running, you'll start seeing a set of metrics that look very similar to your normal stats page. You'll see views, clicks, orders, revenue, and then you have spend and ROAS, which stands for return on ad spend. Out of these, the most important one that you need to understand is ROAS. And this is your overall ROAS for all your advertised listings. ROAS basically tells you how much money you're getting back for every dollar you spend. So if your ROAS is 2, that means that for every $1 you spend, you're making back $2 in revenue. Sounds good, right? But again, revenue is not profit, so you need to go a step further. This is where your break-even ROAS comes in. This is the number that you need to hit just to not lose money. For digital products, it's a little simpler. Theoretically, your break-even ROAS is 1, right? Because there's no production cost. But in reality, Etsy fees still apply. So if you're selling a $10 product, you'll only get to keep around $8.56. That's after fees. Then your actual break-even ROAS is a bit closer to 1.14. For print on demand or physical products, you need to calculate your profit margin. So let's say you're selling a product for $20 and your net profit after production and fees is $5. That's a 25% margin. To find your break-even ROAS, you need to divide 1 by 0.25, which gives you 4. That means you need a ROAS of 4 just to break even. So if your ROAS is below that number, you're losing money. It's a lot of math, but this is why understanding your numbers is so important before you even begin running ads. Now, if you scroll down on your ads dashboard, you'll see your advertised listings. And here's where the basic strategy starts. Let's say you turn on ads for all your listings. What you want to do now is monitor 2 main things. First, your ROAS per listing, and second, your spend per listing. We already talked about ROAS, so that part is straightforward. If a listing isn't hitting your break-even or your target ROAS, you should seriously consider turning it off. The second part is spend, and this is where you need to set your own rules. You have to decide how much you're willing to spend to test a listing. Personally, I use a very simple rule. I'm willing to spend up to the net profit of the item. So, if a product makes me $10 in profit, I'll let it spend $10 on ads. If it doesn't get a sale by then I turn it off. For my digital products that make around $5, I stop at $5. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that if your product doesn't get a sale by the time that it reaches your allotted budget, that it's a bad listing. There's still a chance that it'll get organic sales, but it could mean one of 2 things. 1, it's not getting shown to the right audience, or 2, it's too expensive to keep advertising it. As a personal rule, if a listing costs about $1 per click, that's too expensive. Something more acceptable would be ideally less than 50 cents or around that per click. At least that's the case now in 2026. So what you're doing here is filtering. You're slowly removing the listings that don't perform and keeping the ones that do. And over time, your ads become more and more efficient because ideally, you'd only be spending money on listings that are actually making you money. Now, zooming out a bit, let's talk about the 3 ad strategies that Etsy gives you. The first one is greater visibility. This basically pushes your listings in front of more people, but at a higher cost per click. It sounds good on paper, but in reality, it can burn through your budget really fast. This is more for just visibility and brand awareness, and I personally don't use this one because on Etsy, you're not really trying to raise awareness of your shop, right? You're trying to make more sales. The second option is efficient spending, which is also the default. This focuses on showing your listings to people who are more likely to buy, and there's a balance between visibility and cost. This is what I personally use most of the time because it gives more consistent results and it gets me the data that I need in a fast enough pace. The third option is lower click cost. This reduces how much you pay per click, but your listings are shown less often. From my testing, it seems that this strategy targets more specific keywords and possibly more loyal Etsy customers. It's slower, but it's safer, especially if you're just starting out and you don't want to burn through your budget. I do wish that Etsy gave more transparency on how these actually work behind the scenes, because right now it's mostly just these one-line descriptions and that doesn't really provide us much. But based on experience, I'd say start with efficient spending or lower click cost and see how your listings respond. Let's talk about scaling because this is when your ads actually become worth it. So once you've filtered out your listings and you're left with the ones that are profitable, you can start increasing your budget. A simple sign that you're ready to scale is when you're consistently hitting your daily budget. So at that point, you slowly increase it and do keep an eye on your ROAS as you go. As long as your ROAS stays above break-even, you're in a good spot. In an ideal situation, you'd be spending more and still maintaining profitability. That's when ads start to feel like a system instead of just handing money to Etsy. Now that you know the basics of how ads work, we have a new set of things to expect. When you first start running ads, you will probably lose money. That's the unfortunate part of the testing phase. Not every listing is gonna work, and that's normal. The goal is not to win immediately, but to find the winners. And this is where a lot of people quit too early. They turn on ads, spend a bit of money, don't see instant results, and then they give up. That's why running ads isn't really for everyone, and that's okay too. But Etsy ads, or any kind of advertising in general, really is definitely an investment. You may not see immediate results, but if you wait it out and trust the process, then ads can be really profitable. Another thing to keep in mind is delayed conversions. So just because someone clicks on your ad today doesn't mean that they're gonna buy today. People might be favoriting your item, adding it to their cart, and come back days or even weeks later to finish the purchase. Another piece of advice I have is that not every product type is worth advertising. I think that the best listings to advertise are those that have high profit margins or have a higher average order value, meaning listings that get multiple orders in one sitting, such as group shirts or bulk gifts. This gives you more breathing room to test your budget per listing. Lastly, one of the most underrated benefits of ads is keyword data. When you look into your advertised listings, you can see what search terms your ads are showing up for. By the way, you can also turn these on and off depending on how specific or relevant the keywords are. But this is incredibly valuable because it shows you how real customers are actually searching. Sometimes you'll find keywords that you've never even thought of, and you can take these and add them into your listings to improve your SEO. So in a way, ads are not just for sales, they're also a research tool. Now for some frequently asked questions I get. How much budget should you set? Honestly, it depends on your comfort level and how many listings you have. If you have less than 100 listings, you can start with around $25 a day. But if you have hundreds of listings, having a higher budget will help you test faster. Should you advertise everything? If you have a smaller shop, you can. But if you have a large shop, it might be a good idea to test in batches. For example, start with one product type, like shirts. And once you've filtered out the winners, keep those on, then you can add your mugs, then your totes, and so on. Will ads affect your organic growth? Some people say yes, some say no. Personally, I think it does. Etsy's algorithm definitely favors listings that get more sales, and ads can help generate those initial sales. And this can definitely improve your organic ranking. Anyway, those are the basics of Etsy ads in 2026. There are a few more advanced strategies, but this is just the foundation that you need to understand first. And at the end of the day, it's really simple. If a listing is not profitable, turn it off. If it's profitable, keep running it and scale it. That's it. If you found this helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you have any questions or want me to go deeper into more advanced strategies, feel free to leave a comment below. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that you need to have the basics of Etsy down before running your ads. And if you want to make sure that your listings are prepared to convert for both organic and paid sales, you can watch this video next.